having the conversations in advance makes all the difference. If somebody's fearing being trapped, it's because they don't have things mapped out. If somebody's fearing all the expectations, because they haven't had a conversation about expectation. So when those things get aired and it's like, hey, what are your expectations in moving in? The more you have conversations in advance, the less you have to deal with it the hard way later.
DAs equate comfort with love, which sounds like a good thing on its surface, but they can get kind of complacent. When things become more serious, a DA might feel settled and that they don't sort of have to try anymore. So they might not like take their partner out on dates as often as they used to. But you have to realize, like, for the other person, they still want to date you.
Her name is Thais Gibson.
Thais Gibson.
Thais Gibson.
Thais Gibson.
Thais Gibson.
Thais Gibson.
I hope I pronounce her name properly. Thais Gibson.
I am so excited for you to be here with me today. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome back to another episode of our podcast. I am so excited for today's topic. We are going to be talking all about 5 major things to expect when you first move in with a dismissive avoidant. And I feel like this is one of those topics where, a lot of people are connecting and maybe in a relationship with a dismissive avoidant, and they're just wanting their dismissive avoidant partner or loved one to take that next step. And they get to that next step in the relationship and it doesn't end there. There's more challenges that come up. And sometimes moving in with somebody, especially if you are earlier on into a relationship, will actually kind of fast track you to the power struggle stage of relationships. So it can have a little bit of friction early on or cause a little bit more rockiness. But when you understand that these things are coming, you can prepare for them. You can work through them in advance. You can have healthy strategies implemented. So we're going to cover 5 major things today with some honorable mentions of others. I also, if you are new to this podcast, want to let you know that we essentially share here, myself and our great co-host here, Mike DiZio. We dive in and we really share a lot from sort of our perspectives, having been, I was a fearful avoidant attachment style for a long time before doing the work, and Mike a dismissive avoidant before doing the work. So we really share a lot of unique perspectives about our attachment styles and some of the pain points and what it's really like to be on both sides of the equation. So prepare for some personal shares here today as well. And really excited to dive in. So Mike, if you want to kick it off, would love to jump in with you.
Yeah, for sure. Today's a fun one. So we're going to give you some of the things that you might encounter if you're moving on with a DA for the first time. A lot of times people are a little bit shocked. There's a few things that are kind of unexpected, I guess, and we'll dig into that. But we're going to tell you what they are and then give you a few sort of tips and solutions on how to minimize it, or at least manage your own sort of expectations and not take it personal when you see some of these things happen. And again, we want to avoid falling into the roommate trap, because I think sometimes when some of these things happen, and then if they go on autopilot, it can turn into a roommate type situation, or just a situation where you're fed up and you're like, I don't want to be here anymore. Anyway, we'll give you some of these good ones, and let us know if you've encountered any of these or any additional ones, if any of you in the past have experienced, and how you got over that. We'd love to hear that. So the first one we want to talk about is DAs retreat to their own space to create emotional space, emotional distance. A lot of times moving in with someone, they might feel this is becoming too close too quick. So DAs will actively carve out space. And this will obviously cause a lot of distress to the person who's moved in with them, because they're like, hey, I thought this was supposed to be leveling up our relationship. This is kind of the next stage and it's going to bring us closer. But then what you might notice is that a lot of times a DA might almost hide in different spaces, or try to carve out space to themselves, when you might be thinking, hey, we should be hanging out together. We should be spending way more time. We live together. What's going on here? So a lot of times, they're honestly wondering if they made the right decision. Those wounds of feeling trapped might be starting to come at play. And they're worried oh, what if I feel smothered? And there's just a lot of worry and fears. The big one also is what if I'm not free to do things I like when I'm alone? And we've talked about this in past episodes, but the things that they like to do, and obviously they had no one in their house before where they could just do them as much as they wanted. They're worried that their partner is going to be no, you can't, play video games for 4 hours, or you should be spending way more time with me. I'm here now. You should be paying attention to me. So a DA might start to really feel anxious and worried about that. And you might notice them not communicating that they want space, and they'll just kind of hide in the house or hide in different places. And it might leave the partner feeling what's going on here? Are we playing hide and seek? Tell me why we're not why are we not spending more time together when we live in the same house? So yeah, that's number one. Have you experienced that, or do you have any comments?
Yeah, this is great. I love this. This is such a good one to start off with. So here's what I would say, and we can really talk about like what to do in here. But the first thing is that this happens all the time for people. And honestly, I would say this happened like probably with like clients that I saw like 80-90% of the time that I would see clients. And as many people listening know, when I first met my husband, we moved in like relatively early. He was actually the one pushing to move in, which is very interesting now that I think about it and reflect back. But he was like at least partially securely attached, but definitely had a lot of DA in there. And I still had a little bit of fearful avoidant in my attachment style at the time. I had done a lot of other work, but hadn't really worked on like those aspects of the relationship. I'd done a lot of deep personal work, but not necessarily like communication work and boundaries work and sharing my needs and being vulnerable work. So anyways, two things. First thing is, vast majority of the time, this is what you'd see with people moving in with dismissive avoidance, no matter what. Like, you're going to see some initial retreat. I saw this a little bit with my husband. I think it was a little bit buffered by the fact that I was working a lot at the time. I was just building my practice, my business. I was a couple of years, like, very fresh into it. And I think that because I was so busy, and second of all, I'm also introverted. So I kind of needed my own time as well. So I think we actually kind of clicked in that way, that we would both sometimes do things in the house together, like sit and he'd like play a computer game and I would read a book or something, like in a shared space. So I think there was a little bit of that wasn't as bad. I definitely would say I usually see it worse if there's like an extroverted person who's anxiously attached with an introverted dismissive avoidant, or situations like that. But the first part, like, there's ways to combat these things in advance. And I'm such a big believer that the things that you leave on autopilot, you'll learn the hard way. So if you have the information and knowledge to know in advance that like, hey, we're going to have challenges around space and time, then have the conversation, and something that like whenever, as I dug more into the attachment style work, I learned to have conversations with him about things, saying like, hey, how much time do you need to yourself? And how much time do I need to myself? And how much time do I need together to feel like we're present together? And then all we did is created really healthy, sustainable habits around it. So we ended up just having like, okay, 2 nights a week, we hang out together. One night we watch a movie, one night we go for date night, or we watch a documentary, whatever. And one night we go for date night. And then we had carved out time that's like our evenings to ourselves. And just having that time, I think for me was actually really healthy, really good, because I was working a lot and like doing stuff, and it allowed me to have just room to come back to myself. And for him, it allowed him to have time to do his like creature comfort things. And then the second part of this, I'm just like using us as an example, was that his like habit or thing is he liked to play video games. And so, like for me, I just remember at the time, in past relationships, I feel like people had much worse habits that I dated. So for me, I remember being like, I could care less. Like, I like do not care about that at all. Like, if that's your like your guilty pleasure, that's like your habit where you want to play video games a couple hours a week here and there, like, go for it, like do it, like do your thing. And so I think that because I was so accepting about that and just like didn't have any kind of issue with it, I think that allowed him to just like then not feel like he needed to retreat, or like to your point earlier, try to hide part of who he was when we're living together, or part of what recharged him. And that truly is just like something that recharges him. And so I think if it was like a really bad habit where it was like in excess, like for hours and hours and hours, or something like an addictive way, maybe I would feel, I'm sure I would feel differently about it. But those are really the two pillars. Like, I would say how to combat these things is talk in advance about like how much space do you each need apart and how much together. Make healthy habits around it. That problem is just so solved for in advance. It makes everything easier. And then we have to recognize that like, to really have both parties in the relationship let their guard down, we have to be accepting of each other. Like, everybody's got their stuff that they do that like may not be like the most productive thing in the world all the time, but like, we're not robots. We're not supposed to be running around being like peak productivity 24/7. And so making space for each other's things and just like talking about them. I'd be like, oh, how are your video games? Like, how did it go? Just like open up, like make it normal to have that really allow somebody to like be comfortable in themselves around you. And I think that's especially important for dismissive avoidance.
Yeah, huge. I remember when my partner moved in with me, I was nervous about, she's going to judge sort of the way that I live. Like, I don't always have people over for visiting and entertaining or that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'd spend a lot of time on the internet, like watching YouTube videos or watching UFC, like, MMA, UFC fan. So like, Saturday nights, I could easily spend like most of the evening watching UFC fights. But like if my partner were to say like, oh, no, you can't do that. Like you're not going to be watching that as much anymore. That would kind of be like, oh, okay. Like I'm open to compromise. But if somebody just comes in and it's like, okay, I'm here now, like the show is over. This is going to be how we're living now. For a DA, that would be like the worst thing ever. Like that would make them regret the decision of having someone move in and just feeling like, oh my gosh, like I've lost my autonomy. Now the expectation's so high. I have to like keep this person happier all the time by doing things I don't always want to do. So you just have to be very mindful. And like you mentioned, like if your partner is whatever on the internet or doing video games for like 8 hours a day and ignoring you, of course, that's a conversation that needs to be had. But that's why before you move in, it's probably best to have a conversation about like how much time we should spend together. Like on the weekends, are we spending the weekends most of the time together? During the week, should we plan, okay, let's try to have dinner together every night, not like maybe breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but let's try to have dinners most nights, unless one of us has something going on outside of the house. So just kind of have like a loose conversation around, expectations. And for the DA, like don't like lie to like please the partner and think, oh, like she's gonna think I'm weird or like bad or strange or whatnot. If I like say truly like, hey, like I like to play video games for about 4 hours a day. Yeah, it's just, you got to own it, and that's who you are. And if those are things that bring you happiness or relief or calm, then that's fine. And I'm sure there's things your partner does that don't bring you happiness, relief, or calm, but that's their sort of right to do those activities as well.
Exactly. And like those should just be conversations. Like if somebody does okay like 4 hours a day and it's like every day, at that point, like if it whatever it is, then maybe you're like, hey, like could we do this on these nights instead? Or, have some like it's fine to make compromises, like if it's a little bit more excessive like that.
Yeah.
But if somebody needs to do things to like recharge and that's their way of doing things, like the funniest thing, and I'll just be really open to people, is that with a lot of people, this is not me speaking negatively towards any particular attachment style, but a lot of times I would see people who like would spend like hours a day watching like reality television, and they would go in and they would be like, my spouse plays video games and they're too old to be playing video games. It's like, well, you watch like hours of television. Like, what is there really that big of a difference? Like if there's so people, and if something is in excess, cool, like do more habits, go outside, take up sports or hobbies together, like do different things. If it's in excess. But if it's like something somebody does for an hour or two and that's just like their way to unplug, like then that's there. And I could understand too. I know some people's situations is like they have 3 kids under 3 and both are working 2 jobs. And, in that case, like if somebody's not pulling their weight in the relationship, that's a different discussion. But I think really being able to have like an attitude of acceptance and openness and just respect for the fact that like everybody recharges differently, as long as those activities are not things that are like harming anybody or betraying the relationship in some way or something like that, then it's actually really healthy to make room for those things. And just the more accepting and open you are with each other, the easier things are going to flow for sure.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I remember like hiding out early on in my partner moving in with me. I think there was some friction about like, I was a little bit more messy, or like the way that I did things was not the cleanest, or like a little bit messy. But I took that, I think at first I took that as like a personal sort of a knock against me and who I am. So I noticed there's 2 bedrooms here, thankfully. And I noticed I was sort of hiding out almost for the first week, because I felt it was like there was a lot of animosity, and like it was almost, instead of a partnership, it was like the enemy lived in the house with me, and like I could never do anything right. Like everything was, I did wasn't right. But really, she was just stating like, hey, like I'm more of a clean type person, and it really bothers me when you don't like clean the toilet, or like it doesn't bother me. It bothers me when you don't, when you leave a mess on the kitchen table. So I will admit, at first, like I said, I was taking that like things personally and being like, man, she's really like pushing at me for all these little things. But really, she was just stating sort of her boundaries and her sort of what she expects in her living environment. And, after just changing a few habits and a few things, and it just became like second nature. It's like, okay, I finished eating, like clean the kitchen table, no big deal. So yeah, just to the point where at first I was like, I saw myself hiding. I was like hiding in the bedroom a lot. I was like, oh man, like this feels uncomfortable. And I was thinking like, oh, maybe this wasn't a good idea. Like maybe we have different styles of living and it's not going to work. But I'm like, no, that's the old VA story where you're like, everything needs to be perfect. You're going to move in with someone and your habits are going to mesh, and your timing and what time you go to bed together, like everything has to be perfect. And that's who you're meant to be living with. That's just not going to happen.
The fantasy.
Yeah, exactly. So once we hash those things out, then right away, like you're like not hiding anymore.
And I think that's the most important part is like hash those things out. I find that like with every couple, when people get really stuck, there's this ambiguity around it, or it's like in the gray area. Like there's this like halfwayness to the discussion. So it's like, oh, you feel this underlying tension, or there's like, okay, somebody's saying something about the tidying this or cleaning that. And then there's one person kind of feeling on the defense and retreating. And it's like the faster you're like, okay, there's tension. Here's what's going on. Clearly we have different styles of living. Okay, let's just surface it. Like, what are the non-negotiables for you? What are the compromises I need you to make for me? How can we meet in the middle? Because at the end of the day, yes, like, one person, if they're super messy all the time living with a clean person, that's hard on the clean person, right? So then the tidier person, they have to speak up and communicate their boundaries and things like that. But also, it's not reasonable to be like, this person is not going to change all of their habits overnight immediately, and they're going to become this perfectly tidy person if that's just not their way of doing things. And it's really interesting, not to go too far off topic, but there's something called, I'm sure most people are familiar with this, is 16 personalities, or MBTI, and Myers-Briggs type indicator. And there's different cognitive functions. And like we have, as one of the 4-letter pairings that you get 16 different potential outputs of pairings, but there's an N or an S. And people who are N cognitive functions, it's a very generalized view of it, but they tend to live a lot in their head. And so they're not noticing their physical environment in the same way. And the S's, they live very present in their physical external environment. Yeah. And so you have to, like, I'm an N as well, and my husband is too, so that actually worked out nicely. But you have to kind of clock it. Like, you have to pay attention. Like, Graham and I just got into the habit of, like, because we were both like, would leave things open sometimes or just not even notice. And then we just got into a ritual together. It's like, okay, we'll just do like an evening tidy, like every day, just do a quick like 10-minute tidy together. And it's just easy and simple, right? Because the more things are like habituated, the less conflict there is. It's when there's not like a habit and when it hasn't been aired to the surface that it's like the problematic part. Also, sometimes like the S's, or like it's not just S's, but people who are like much more orderly, they can have these expectations from their partners. Like, this, like, they're so used to things being a certain way that they're like, okay, everything has to change overnight. And it's like, well, that should just be an aired conversation. Like, how do we make this easier? Do we do like a routine at the end of the day, a routine halfway through the day where you just clean up together, or that one person who's messier goes in and tidies, for themselves if the other person's been doing it? Like, just making it really clear and having a habit and having a discussion around it gets rid of all of the underlying tension.
Yeah. I like how you highlighted both sides of the perception there, because the S's get like almost an anxiety when it's not clean. So as an N myself, I have to realize that for me, it doesn't bother me at all. I can live in a pretty disorderly environment, but I have to realize for my partner, that's going to actually like cause them anxiety, and like, they're not trying to be mean or whatever, but like, it's going to make them feel a lot better if I help them keep the place orderly. Yeah. Then on the flip side, the N's, like myself, it's almost like I'm blind to it. She'll be like, oh my God, like, what, you don't notice there's like sand all over the floor? Because we live in a beach town, so a lot of times sand can trek into the house. And then I'll look at me like, oh yeah, I guess there.
I totally get that.
When I look at the house, it's like I'm blind to it. So the point is, and I think you pointed out before, for the person who likes it orderly, you have to realize that your partner, who might be an N, just doesn't see it, and you kind of have to repeat it a few times, because it's not something that you can just change and be like, oh, she doesn't like sand on the floor, there's never going to be sand on the floor again. Like, she had to sort of repeat certain things many times for me to sort of change the habit. But there's 2 ways of doing it. You can do it where you're getting angry every time. That's probably not going to work too well. But if you like gently remind, hey, like, a lot of sand comes in the house, can we just try to do like maybe once a day sweep of the house? Okay. And you might have to say that like 5 or 6 or 20
Or set an
times.
alarm on your phone even or something, like just to like make it a habit.
Yeah.
But I honestly think to your point, Graham and I would laugh so hard because there would be times where like, and I don't mean to go too far down a rabbit hole, but I remember there was one time and we lived together in this condo. It was like a 2-bedroom condo for like a couple years. Like we were like in this place for a while and I had hung a calendar and then I had just left it there and we never used it because I would always use a planner and everything or like Google Calendar.
Yeah.
I remember, first of all, I didn't even notice that like the calendar was there from like the year before. Like the year had come and gone. It had never crossed my mind. Like I just saw this little calendar up by the fridge.
Yeah.
And then I remember one time he came home from work and it was like literally the calendar had been there for like over like to the next year to the point where it was from the year before and I didn't notice. And Graham was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you hung a calendar."
Oh my gosh. That's
And
amazing.
we're dying. I was like, because I realized like, wait, I was like, we hung a calendar. I was like, that calendar has been there since last year. Look, we didn't even
Yeah.
change it. And
Yeah.
anyways, so I think there's a part where really sometimes if you're somebody who like lives a little bit more in your head, you really don't notice
No.
and it's not like to be rude to the other person or anything like that.
Yeah.
But that's where it's like, unless you habituate things, it just like it gets out of hand. You don't realize. So I feel like for those types of situations, like I would always, whenever I see couples who are in those places, I'd be like, okay, habits, like what are your habits? And just to have something
Yeah.
where it's like your alarm goes off at 3:30 every day and you sweep the floor, whatever it is, like it
No.
just makes it 100 times easier.
Exactly. I love it.
I just wanted to pop in here and let you know we are doing a 7-day free trial to the All Access Membership Pass at PDS, which means you get access to literally everything inside of the school. And this includes the 4 live webinars I do with our students every single week. And on top of that, you get access to all of our different courses. We have over 55 different courses on relationships, communication, boundaries, emotional mastery, guilt and shame, learning your needs, so many different facets that are really important to master our lives and feel really good about our lives going forward. And last but not least, there's a daily community event. We have trained facilitators and coaches who are in there doing that work, showing up to support you on your journey every single day. Please join me on the other side. Come check it out. See if it's a fit for you. I'd love to see you there. Go ahead and sign up by clicking the link in the description box below.
Number 2 item is that you might notice and be like, hey, what's going on here? So DAs equate comfort with love, which sounds like a good thing on its surface, but they can get kind of complacent. So when things become more serious, a DA might feel settled and that they don't sort of have to try anymore. So they might not like take their partner out on dates as often as they used to, or like take them out to shows or whatever, like go outside and like basically date your partner still, which everyone should be doing. They really get comfortable in staying home a lot and just being comfortable and thinking, oh, this is great. Like, you know, we're comfy in the house watching Netflix every night. And I can get guilty of that too. I love that. But you have to realize, like, for the other person, they still want to date you. Like, they still want to go out together, go to the restaurant, cook, decorate the house, like just do things, not just be this like, okay, we're this boring sort of married couple now and we're just going to stay home and sort of take our foot off the gas. So you might notice a DA kind of taking their foot off the gas and just being like, okay, we live together, so now let's just, you know, stay in the house.
Take it easy. Yeah.
And this feels good. To them, it feels really good. And it feels like, wow, I feel really comfortable with my partner and can just be myself and stay home. But as you know, as we know, the partner, and especially like an FA who might crave novelty and change and things like that, they might be like, what is going on here? Like, my partner doesn't really care much anymore to like try. Like, they really seem like they're not trying, but it's actually due more to like, they're just comfortable. This feels really, really comfortable to them.
Yeah, 100%. Honestly, it's another habits thing. Like I think that one of the keys to long-term success in a relationship, not always, but like especially when you have different attachment styles or things like that, I think for sure is to like always date your partner. You kind of said that in passing. I'm a big believer in that. And like I get it. Like life gets busy. Maybe you don't get to go on a date every single weekend, or sometimes people are like in a place where they're financially strapped and they can't afford to like go out for dinner every weekend, right? That can be really taxing on the wallet. But like it doesn't have to be in that form. Like, it doesn't have to be like, oh, you go on a date and it always has to be to some kind of like fancy restaurant or something. It can be like you go on a date and you have a picnic together outside, or you go for like a nice drive and you sit out and you watch the sunset together, like intentional activities that you're doing as a date. And I think that, like, you know, sometimes people have too young kids and all these things. And I understand there's a very small percentage of people who like actually have two young kids, two jobs. They're just like surviving, putting one foot in front of the other. They don't have their parents around to come help, like watch the kids. But I would say for the vast majority of people, if you can, like, have your parents watch your kids for one evening a week or something, just so, or even one evening bi-weekly, but have an intentional time to do those things. Because to your point, dismissive avoidants get so settled in and they feel great about that. But if you are of another attachment style, you're probably going to experience the opposite, especially like fearful, avoidant, secure people, anxious, they all like really care to do stuff sometimes. And so you keep getting to know your partner. And I think that it's really important to do that, to keep asking intentional questions, to connect, because I look back on who I was 10 years ago versus now, and I've changed so much as a person. And, you know, everybody will, you know, so the more that we're able to be consistent about like asking questions, growing together with somebody rather than growing apart is huge. But then also, if you're the attachment style living with a dismissive avoidant and you're like, wait, why are they complacent? They're not like making an effort to do all these things. Just recognizing that a lot of the time it's not from a lack of care. It's truly because dismissive avoidance, one of the ways that they receive love, just like a fearful avoidant may receive love through like novelty or exploration. And that could be one of their things. Dismissive avoidance, they one of their like really big ways of giving and receiving love is they associate with safety and comfort. And so of course you're going to see that, but again, making up for those discrepancies by just having healthy habits in advance makes all of the difference.
Exactly. And like DAs, I believe we're pretty open to that stuff. We probably won't suggest it, but if your partner is like, hey, like, you know, we've stayed in a home for a couple weeks now, like really, really craving to go out to a restaurant, or like really craving to go for a hike or do something outside with you. Generally, you know, the DA should be like, okay, yeah, let's do it. Like I said, they might not suggest it, but just having you, like, if you're an FA especially, like, don't feel like, oh, I can't speak up here. Like, it seems like the tone is like we're the homebodies now and we got to stay home or whatnot. But speak up for your needs. Like, if that's something you want, desire, then say it. And a lot of times, I know I was grateful for kind of being pushed to like go do stuff. Like sometimes they're like, I don't want to leave the house, or like, I'm comfortable here. But then when you go out to do something, they push you to go to a party or go to a social event, you're like, hey, I'm really glad I did that. Yeah. So, you know, it's good for both to try to do those things. And just another couple cool ideas is like find a new recipe and like cook together in the house. Play some music, you know, prep the food, make a meal together. That's something kind of fun and interactive. You can have like games nights with your partner, Trivial Pursuit or chess. And then you mentioned before in the last topic, like doing a sport with a partner. Me and my current partner, we play ultimate frisbee together. We're on this there's like this social group of guys and girls that play ultimate frisbee on the beach. And it is so much fun. And like, we just love doing it together. It's like twice a week we get to play it together. And then after, we always go for like a coconut water and talk about the game and stuff like that. So for me, I've never really had that before. I always had my physical activity separate. Like I go to the gym by myself and like play sports with the boys and that kind of stuff. But this is the first time I've had like a sport together with a partner. And it's so fulfilling. Like we both like love it like crazy. And I know you and Graham like playing pickleball, is it?
I think I'm obsessed with pickleball. We played tennis for years too, but then we like got into a pickleball community of people. And then like that's kind of the main thing now, but it's so fun. Like it's like the best thing ever for sure.
That's awesome.
And I'm a big believer in that. And I think like really, and I know I'm like harping on this. This is like my theme for everything we're going to answer. Is like, I am a person, I just kind of like realized this when we were talking about this out loud, that I'm like constantly just optimizing my life in advance. I'm like such an optimizer of everything. I really want everything like optimized. And I think just early on into the relationship, before Graham and I like learned to communicate better, or like, you know, in the first like year or so that we were dating, I just knew in advance that my life was really busy. And I was like, hey, I like to go out once a week and do a date. And like, I don't care what it is. It could be that we like go for a drive and sit outside and watch this. It could be literally anything. It could be like have some kind of intentional activity that we do together. Mm-hmm. We're doing that every week. That's like a non-negotiable for me. And I just had that really early. And then we would do something else, like staying in once a week together. And then we had our busy lives. And I think like just having the conversations ahead of time as habits. And of course, it didn't mean that like if 1 week we couldn't go on a date because something happened, like someone's traveling or there was a work pressure or something, that like, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. But like having the intent to do that on the regular basis and that be your baseline, you just never have to worry about those things later on. Like you're not like, oh, is the partner suggesting? Am I suggesting? Who's planning? Who's doing what? Like all of that potential for chaos is like optimized in advance. Everything's done and out of the way. And it just allows for like smooth sailing. And I think like having optimized relationship habits just like literally makes all the difference.
Exactly. And like we said, it just goes on kind of autopilot.
Yeah.
If not, this is not being done. And sometimes, one person's not happy and just kind of going along with it. And the further you go into autopilot and one person's not happy, it just gets more and more built up resentment. And then, oh, I can't be with this person. But it's like, oh, but you guys didn't really try to like plan or like air out what the issue was early on. Right.
Yeah.
So definitely have to bring that up early on. And, once one person says it, the other person has a right to be like, okay, well, if that's your sort of non-negotiable, then my non-negotiable is once a week we, I don't know, clean the deck together or something like that. The person in the relationship who wants to clean more. So it's, you set that tone early and that's just, okay, this is the way things are going to be and just go from there. So
yeah. Awesome.
So the next one's a little bit of like just a perspective so people understand what their DA is going through and they feel like, what's going on here? Like, I thought this was going to be a happy family. We're going to play a house, like me, my partner, and the dog. Like, this is going to be, really, really fun. But you might feel the DA is digressing and feel like they're moving backwards. But just know, like, their feelings haven't changed. It's just their fear of expectation and for closeness and that they're going to feel trapped. That really starts to like come up for them. And they're setting the tone of like not having too much expectation for themselves. Because if they start out too hot, where they're like, oh yeah, like,
let's do everything together all the time.
Oh, you like the place spotless? I don't usually do that, but let's have the place spotless all the time. So like, there's this fear that if they start out too hot, they're going to be like, I cannot keep this up. This is just
they're going to burn themselves out.
Oh, burn out like 1,000,000%. So you don't want to set the bar too high and unrealistic. And I think in the beginning of DA, you might notice that they're just digressing and being like we were talking about, maybe hiding a lot more. Like, it doesn't feel like this happy house family. Like, we just moved in, the relationship's leveling up. You just might have those feelings of like, my partner's kind of not hanging out with me as much, or like, we're not doing things together all the time. Like, what's going on here? So just know, I just want listeners to know that this is sort of a transition period where a DA is just really nervous about losing autonomy, really nervous that they're going to have to be someone that they're not. And then at some point, their partner is going to be like, this is not cool. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. So
100%. And there's like this, I think dismissive avoidants carry this deep fear that once I'm really seen as I am, that maybe somebody will not like me for it. And so I think there's that comes up for sure, that defectiveness, fear and concern. But honestly, more than anything else, I think that one of the big themes is that like, and I'm going to say this for every point, but like having the conversations in advance makes all of the difference. Because think about it, right? If somebody's fearing being trapped, it's because they don't have things mapped out. If somebody's fearing all the expectations, because they haven't had a conversation about expectation. Mm-hmm. So when those things get aired and it's like, hey, what are your expectations in moving in? What are your expectations in how much time we spend together? What are your expectations for how much time we need to ourselves? What are your expectations for like what our lifestyle looks like together? Like, the more you have conversations in advance, the less you have to deal with it the hard way later. And like, wherever anybody listening is feeling a sense of distress or concern about those things, just like talking it out, having clarity around it, just like helps everybody feel like the dust is settled. And I think back to like when I was fearful, avoidant, and leaning dismissive, and I lived with somebody years and years ago. I was young, but I lived with somebody for a few years. I remember like feeling trapped sometimes, like feeling this like, oh my gosh, like trapped. And looking back on that, I had no awareness of like attachment style stuff then. I had learned about it in like first year university, but just like you learn about just temperaments of children kind of thing. And I remember just like feeling trapped. And I just been able to have a conversation that said, hey, I need X amount of time to myself. And here's what that looks like on these days. And this is the time I need to recharge. It would have just solved for all of that so far in advance and made it so much less stressful. And instead, I guess like if I'm really looking back on that time, I also felt trapped. This is more FA because I felt that there was this expectation of me to spend all this time with a person. So I like avoided what I actually needed and kind of ignored and repressed it in favor of that. And then I would feel trapped and frustrated. And like those are just solvable problems through like communication and boundaries.
100%. Yeah, and it's okay. Like, I'm thinking of a scenario like if let's say we were out socializing and with a group or whatever, I might come home and feel like my social battery got burnt a little bit, and my partner wants to spend time together now. I might just say, hey, listen, I just need like 20 minutes to go into the other room and just sort of like decompress. And then like, let's watch a movie after, or let's spend some time after. Yeah. And totally fine with that. Like if I were to just like come home and like go into the other room and like shut the door, then like, of course, Bert is going to be like, what's going on here? But the fact you explain like, hey, I just feel a little bit drained from like all that socializing. Just, I need like 20, 30 minutes just to like kind of come back to myself and gain my energy. And then let's hang out. And of course, she's totally fine with it. Like you're explaining what's going on in your internal reality and sharing, and then saying like, let's hang out later. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And I can't see a partner getting like really upset or
and if somebody's getting really upset about it, like that's probably not the right partner for somebody. Like that's not a good situation. So that's where like, I think it goes back to this idea, like a lot of dismissive avoidance, and it's part of their healing to communicate and open up. And you're sharing so many good examples of that. Like, but so many dismissive avoidants, because they usually don't know how to communicate or open up about those things. They just do the actions. They just go into the other room and close the door. And then the other person's like, oh, what? Like, are you upset with me? And they take it personally. And it's like all of these things. And you can just be a little bit vulnerable and share, like, this is how I am. This is what I need. This is what's going on, and give a little bit of context. Dismissive avoidants will come to realize that, like, hey, I can actually have the things that I need and have a relationship simultaneously. Those things can coexist. Whereas I think a lot of dismissive avoidants think it's one or the other. It's my needs or the relationship. And it makes it feel like it's at this really intense, scary precipice of like me or you. I have to pick one. And it's like, that's the furthest thing from the truth. But it will always come to feel like that if you don't know how to communicate. Because if you don't communicate, you don't give the context. The dismissive avoidant does things like go into the other room and shut the door without saying anything. It causes friction. The dismissive avoidant then proceeds to interpret that friction as like, oh, this means that like you're not okay with me having time to myself. See, it is me or you. And it becomes this vicious cycle that is all cut through so easily with just a little bit of vulnerability and communication.
Exactly. So yeah, if the D doesn't communicate, they'll definitely take space. They'll take their space. They're just known for doing that. And the funny thing is, like, they think the action is sort of a communication, and they're trying to avoid a conflict. But really, by doing that, you're sort of leaving this thing to be interpreted as like, oh, my partner doesn't want to be with me, or my partner doesn't enjoy me in their house. Like I feel like I'm not welcome here. So it's not fair. Like, just, you gotta let your partner know the score. And I remember too, like, spending time in the second bedroom, and I might have been there for a couple hours, and then my partner's like, hey, like, I'm needing cuddles. Like, can we cuddle for a little bit? And I might have been like, oh, I just need another like half an hour. I'm just, finishing something, or just give me 20 more minutes. And I promise, let's cuddle. And she's like, okay, cool. So it's just like, there's these, you're not like, I need it right now. Like, stop what you're doing. But she's letting me know, hey, I'm feeling a little raw right now. I need some cuddles. Can you come? And I was like, yeah, for sure. Like, I'll be there in 15 minutes or whatnot. Obviously, she's going through like a crisis that really upset. I'm going to go right away.
Of course.
But I mean, she's just saying like, oh, I wouldn't mind a little cuddle. And it's like,
and that's beautiful. And see, that's like such like secure communication too, because like when you look at it, right? I remember I did a summer school course back in high school, like way back. And it's like you get your whole credit like fit into like 1 year. I did it so I had an extra spare in 12th grade. And I remember you do it, and it's like a month or something. And it's like your whole semester is in 1 month, and it's like this rapid learning period. I feel like living together is like that. Like, you have the conversations, there's like that rapid learning. There's a learning curve at the beginning. You have to figure each other out and like that degree of things. But then once you do and you have those conversations, then it's just easy. Then somebody comes, hey, let's hang out. I could use a cuddle for a little bit. Oh, yeah, I'd love to. Just give me like 15 more minutes. And like then it's just these natural, organic like conversations. Oh, I'm just finishing up something. I'll come in half an hour. You might even learn that the person doesn't like to be put on the spot. So you say, hey, in the next hour or so, I'd like a cuddle. And then you give that context. So the more that's just like aired ahead of time and you just learn to communicate that way, that becomes the norm of communicating. And then suddenly it's like so much easier to go through all of that with somebody. You don't even have to like, you just know those things in advance and it normalizes the communication of needs. And that's like the crux of when you start having this really secure relationship, because if you can communicate that openly and then you habituate that over time and then it's just normal to communicate that way, that's where people start to see like, okay, we're in this like secure relationship. We feel comfortable, being vulnerable. We're not personalizing each other's behavior. We share our needs. We share our feelings. We are mindful and respectful of each other. Like these are such beautiful things that people can learn on their journey.
Yeah. It's so like comforting to know like there's no punishment for just stating a need in the moment. Like I'm not feeling good right now. I can't do that for you. Or like I don't know, whatever it is. Like
I just need a little bit of time still to myself or whatever it is. Yeah.
Like you said, it's not black and white. It's like, if you don't do this, there's going to be a punishment. But also, you want to lean on your partner. If they're going through something, you're going to be extra attentive and try to make them feel better if something's going on in the moment. But generally, the point is like you're allowed to say what you need, and if you're not available to do something right at that moment, you can say that as well. It shouldn't be like a huge sticking point.
Yeah, and like for context too, like obviously Graham and I have been together for a very long time now, like a decade. But in the early days when we were learning some of this stuff together and kind of going through it together, like if there was a time where it was like, oh my gosh, I urgently need your help with something. Like there's been many times from like, he's really good with like technology and it's not my strong suit. And there's been times for like work things, I'm like, I need you to drop everything and help me. Like it's urgent, something's about to start or whatever. And like, of course, like somebody's going to do it if there's an urgent thing, if there's a crisis, like they can drop everything and be there. But just knowing that if you have like a desire to hang out or do something and they're in the middle of doing something, just to like leave it open-ended. Hey, in the next little bit, can we ABC? And just have that flexibility and have that room for both people. And then it gets into a space where it's like, you get into a nice ebb and flow and it just feels natural. And once you've reached the place where like communicating your needs openly feels really normal and natural and you've kind of learned each other that way after moving in together, that's when you're like, for all intents and purposes, you're operating as a secure couple.
Yeah, exactly. I find myself like less lazy to do stuff for my partner as well now. I'm not sure what that's all about.
That's probably because you're like, you have more bandwidth and you see that in every dismissive avoidant as they come into being fully secure.
Yeah. Like if she does want me to clean something, I'm like, yeah, no big deal. Like I can do that. Whereas I think before in past relationships, they would be like so resistant. Like, yeah, like I'll clean it later. Like leave me alone. And then like, forget about it or
but it makes sense, right? Because if you in past relationships are always operating in a deficit because you couldn't communicate your needs, so it felt like you're constantly losing yourself. Then when somebody says, hey, now do this thing too, you're like, I'm already losing myself, and there's resistance as a boundary to try to take yourself back. But when you start feeling like you can just communicate your needs, carve out your space for yourself, you don't feel like you lose yourself in the abyss of like somebody else and being in a relationship. Then by the time somebody asks you for something, you're actually operating with bandwidth. Rather than like, oh my gosh, I'm losing myself. My bandwidth's always shrunken. And then when somebody asks me for something, it's like my last bit of bandwidth that I'm giving up.
Oh, that's the worst. When you're just empty and then somebody's asking for more, you're like, no, like somebody save me. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, that's good. All right. So number 5, if and when conflict does ramp up, you might notice the DA will retreat even more. DAs, obviously, we know, don't want to have conflict. They're very conflict avoidant. And especially in their home environment, like their home environment when they were living alone, that was their safe space where they can come home, be themselves, mask off, play video games, do whatever they want. But if conflicts come up, they're like, it's really hard because they're probably like, oh man, I had this so good before. Like, why did I do this? Before it was so peaceful. Nobody was bothering me to do this or that. Like, it was just awesome. And then now, somebody's here and they're having these conflicts. So for the DA, they might think, oh, this is not working. This is not meant to be. But again, we're saying it again, but this is the theme of the episode. You need to communicate. You need to, when these conflicts come up, you have to deal with them as they come up, because the more you sort of sweep them under the carpet, they're just going to build. And then it's almost hard to like solve all these conflicts because there's just so many going on at once. And then of course you're thinking, yeah, like this is pointless. Like there's no way out of this. There's just too many disagreements and things that we just don't agree on. And this is futile. So yeah, just know that you might see a DA when you move in. It's, tell me if I'm wrong, but it speeds it up to like the power struggle phase sometimes, because you are seeing these sort of new things that you might not have seen before in a person. And it can be a little bit like, oh, what's going on here? And like your summer school analogy, it's like a lot of things happening at once. So it's just by nature, you're probably going to have some disagreements. But again, that doesn't mean like the relationship is flawed. It just means, okay, we have some new things that are here all at once that we need to work through. So
100%. And I think if you could graph it, it would be like you date somebody, things get more serious, you move in and you enter into the power struggle stage most likely. And then like you could graph the conflict going up because there's more things to talk about. It's rapid learning, right? Like the conflict's going to go up. But when you learn to do conflict well, conflict does not mean a fight. It does not mean an argument. It means, hey, I noticed there's a little bit of tension around the house, like with the dishes. And I noticed that you're a little more like interested in things always being clean right away. I kind of leave things till the end of the day. I don't want us to have tension around it. Let's hash it out. What's like our middle ground? And you just talk about it like a normal conversation. And when you can do these things and start communicating and getting used to it, because it's not always easy to communicate right away, you build the skill of communication. Like if you ride a bike, you're going to maybe fall or be a little shaky at the beginning, but you build the skill, you get good at it. And all of a sudden you could graph the conflict coming way down in the relationship and the way I describe to people coming out of the power struggle stage is that it's literally marked by like all the things that you had to talk about initially, you don't have to talk about anymore because you've already figured it out. And so now it's like you go from this position of maybe you had to talk about the laundry or the dishes or whatever comes up and like the amount of time or space people need together or alone. But then you have these habits around it, the date night, the whatever it is. And now these things that had the potential to cause conflict, they don't exist. You've already hashed them out in advance. You don't even have to go there. And what you'll see is if you could graph it with people, you'd see it like the conflict goes up. People hash things out. The conflict goes way down and you get way more equipped to do conflict. And then the amount of conversations you have to have about relationship-oriented things goes way down. And so you settle into this beautiful space where like you live with somebody, it feels really natural, it feels really harmonious. You've settled into it. And it feels just as comfortable as if you were alone because you can fully have yourself. And if anything, it gets easier. Like I think of sometimes like, for example, for right now, like Graham and I have a dog and he's going through like a brain cancer. And there's been times the past like week, because he's been going through a particularly tricky phase, where I'm like, thank God I am not doing this alone. Thank God. And sometimes when you have two people living together, when you really like you live together harmoniously, and then when something hard happens, it really offsets how tricky it is to do things alone. I think there's a huge net benefit, like even for dismissive avoidants who could be listening thinking, yeah, but you have to put this work in. Yeah, but it saves you work, especially when you have like a family or pets or just like, work challenges or things that you've got going on, to lean on somebody too who has different skill sets or a different point of view, and you can talk things out through. It actually creates a lot more ease in your life in general. And yes, there's that initial hump to get over where you have to learn and adjust and get through all of that. But once you do, it's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, just add to that. Like, I definitely had my reservations when I had someone moving into my place, but and the first little while was a little rocky, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, like, is this gonna work? Now that fast forward, I don't know how many months into it now, but she made this place so much better, like way better. And like at first, this leads to our next point. We'll weave this in here, but like DAs don't really compromise well. So like this is more so, let's say somebody's moving into the DA's place. If you're like trying to change a lot of stuff, they might take that as like you're trying to change them. So again, they're feeling like you're losing your autonomy, that you're wanting them to be this person that they're not. They're defective, that they need to be changed. So I remember, like I said in the beginning, my partner was like trying to do all this stuff in my place, like putting up curtains and like floor mats and like all this stuff. And at first I was like, what the heck? Like, why is she doing all this stuff to my like house? Like, I didn't ask for anything to be changed or whatever. But like, she's gotten this place so like, it's just so convenient. Like for me, like storage and stuff, I just threw stuff in the cabinets, and like I didn't have that much order. And she likes to put things in all these like nice little bins and like holders and jars and stuff like that. And yeah, the house is just so much like it flows so much better, and it makes my life like 100 times more easy. And I didn't even realize it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I could have at first just resisted and be like, get out of my house. You're trying to change me. This isn't cool. But because we sort of rode out that rough period and things settled in, like it's a benefit. It's such a benefit to have her here.
It's so interesting because like from one person's side, it's like, oh, you're trying to change me. But from the other person's side, they're usually trying to give love. Like they're like, oh, let me show you that I can come in and support you and do these things and make your life better and like think of you and improve your life. And usually a lot of times that like other attachment styles come in and give love is through that. And it's their way of like trying to be supportive or like acts of service or kind things. And so like a lot of times it's so funny too how one person could interpret it as like, you're trying to change me. And the other person's like, no, I'm trying to give you love. And it's like just totally different, like perceptions of things. But yeah, that's a really important share.
Yeah, it's so funny. It almost makes me laugh. Like probably how I had the place before was like, I don't know, if people came over, they'd be like, okay, like this place is all right, but you know, you need some work. But just having someone who like cares enough, you know, about you and then themselves, they want to live in a nice environment. Like, yeah, it was just nice. It was all around nice. So
really nice. Graham, whenever we've moved into a house, Graham's always like, okay, you do all the decorating. I'll help assemble all the furniture. That's like because I like to have everything set up a certain way. And then, yeah, it's a good balance.
Good balance. That's awesome. So, okay, again, this is more so if you're moving into the DA's place, you might notice that they're a little protective of their stuff. So, okay, self-consideration. Let's tackle this first, actually. Like, DAs obviously are very self-considerate, like their whole lives, and especially in childhood. They had to be independent. They had to sort of serve themselves first. So you might notice that your DA is like not super considerate in the beginning. And I remember this in the past, I was definitely like this. Like it would just fly over my head to like, let's say I'm cooking food. Sometimes I'd make food for myself and just like eat it. Or let's say like I'm out and I come home with takeout food. I forgot to like get some for my partner. So because I thought like, oh, she ate before, like she'll be fine. So there was just so many things that I was doing where I wasn't considering like, hey, like you're in a partnership now. Like you have to be very considerate of the other person. Like you have to phone them and be like, hey, I'm getting food. Would you like something? Can I get something for you? So now it's just like a very common habit where it's like, hey, I'm out at the store. Do you need anything? Hey, I'm out at wherever. Do you want me to bring something home? Like it's just autopilot now to just consider that like there's another human in your life and you have to be very mindful of that. Like, but before it was literally like I would I'd take a lot of flack for that, rightfully so, because I kind of chuckle about it now. Like it's sort of embarrassing to think how I used to be, but like, yeah, I would get a lot of flack where it's like, hey, like, what the heck? Like,
yeah,
hello? Like, did you forget about me? Like, what's going on here? So yeah, just, you might notice a few behaviors that take a while to realize that there's someone else to be considered through the whole day and night now that you weren't considering before. So it seems obvious, but for DAs, sometimes that's a very big shift.
Yeah. And I think if you're in a position where you have somebody and you're dating them, like if they never consider you and you don't see any improvement, okay, like that, you want a relationship, a healthy, secure relationship with somebody who considers. It isn't perfect. Somebody's not always going to remember every little minute detail, but like who overall is like thoughtful and considerate. Those are important qualities. But what you should see is if a dismissive avoidant ends up in a situation where they are doing, or they're not doing very much of that, communicate, tell the person, hey, if I go for takeout, I would ask if you want anything. And same thing, or if you're going to cook dinner, like let's cook together, or ask me if I want anything. And just having conversations to allow for that and letting the person know that matters to you, or those are your needs. Yeah. And not in a confrontational way, not in a blaming way, not in a yelling at somebody way, but just in a, hey, do you mind next time being mindful about ABC and this means a lot to me and here's why and here's how I try to do this for you, and just that way we can consider each other better, and just allowing yourself to take up space in the relationship would move the needle with anybody who's wanting to be in a relationship with you. If somebody is in a place where they like absolutely can't be more mindful or thoughtful about that, that's a different conversation. But usually these are very easy, very solvable problems through just a little bit of transparency and open communication about your own needs. If you're somebody dating a dismissive avoidant, and then that allows for things to really build momentum in a healthy way and move more in that secure direction. So it's a really good example.
Yeah, just to double down on something you said there, like if you're coming at it in like a shaming way, yeah, when it's like the mirror is put on you, the DA feels like, oh my God, I am like such a piece of crap. Like, holy, I can't believe, I did that, or I can't believe I didn't think about you there. There can be a lot of shame, you know what I mean? But just know like it's part of their programming, part of their sort of hyper independence. And it's not because they're actively like, hey, I'm going to do this just for myself and completely forget about you. It's just sort of like an autopilot, subconscious program to like
decades of their own conditioning. That's like how, and nobody was really doing that for them or modeling that to them. So it was just like an unknown. Like, how could you know if you grow up in a household where like that's what you're taught, that's how your parents operate, your family operates, like that's all of your conditioning. And of course, somebody's going to be coming from that place, but it doesn't mean that that person isn't ready or willing or capable of just, moving the needle and taking a step towards that. And as long as that person feels like they get to keep the relationship with themselves in the process, you're generally going to see a lot of momentum there.
Exactly. That's our list. Just to add a couple more things, we talk about don't stop dating each other, always air out your expectations, learn communication skills so conflict doesn't have to be the downfall of the relationship. So if you haven't learned any like sort of conflict communication and how to solve conflict, like that's something definitely you want to look into and learn. Both sides should do healing on their core wounds and triggers, because a lot of times, as we know, you're taking certain behaviors or something that someone does, your core wound might get touched, and then
living with somebody is a great way to have your core wounds triggered more often. There's an old story, or there's an old saying. It's like, I love this. It's one of my favorite quotes ever. It's by Rumi. He says, "If I'm irritated by every rub, how will I ever be polished?" And it's this idea that like, hey, when people irritate you, it's also polishing you. It's helping you see like what's unhealed, what's coming up for you, and what still exists. And so it's really worthwhile to be able to notice those things and do the rewiring, reconditioning work. But truly, like that is, I'm a personal big believer that relationships are not just for love and connection. They're also for growth. They're also for you being able to like see what's going on inside of yourself. They'll push on everything that's not healed and bring it to the surface for you to heal.
And for like DAs especially. So, okay, I heard this quote too. I don't know if it's a quote or sort of like a saying, but like your core wounds were acquired in a relationship. So that's where they're going to be healed, is in a relationship. Yeah. It's a different relationship, mind you, parents and kid versus your adult romantic relationships. But that's where a lot of the work is done, because you can like go off to a mountain and meditate and isolate yourself and probably make yourself feel pretty darn amazing. But then when you come back down to the mountain and you have to relate with other humans, that's when your triggers all come back all at once.
And truly they do. I had a couple clients who were monks over the years. And the thing that shocked me in both occasions was how much they seemed so at peace when they were in a monastery and off doing stuff. And then when they came back to real life, it was almost like they were extra hyper triggered by everything, because they had done some nervous system work, but then these core wounds would come up, especially in relationships the most. And it would be like, oh, you don't necessarily heal. I think it's beautiful to like unplug. I think you can do some deep healing from a nervous system perspective and somatic perspective, but you have to do the rewiring work. Otherwise those triggers are still going to come up and you're going to feel extra sensitive to them because you've just been away from anything that triggers you. So now to go back in, it kind of feels like this rude awakening for people.
Sure. And then lastly, I wanted to share a comment on one of the videos to do with this topic. One of the users just suggested, and this seems very obvious, but like try living with someone a few days at a time before moving in. So it's not this huge shock. So if you're dating someone, been together for a year or two, whatever, start, 2 days a week.
Long weekends or something.
Long weekends, like just go on 1 week trips. Because I can imagine there's nothing worse of like not knowing anything about how your partner sort of lives their day-to-day life, and then making that step and moving in and just being like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe they do this, or I can't believe
The overwhelm factor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can work out sort of a few things
In
before.
advance. It's like you get to like titrate out your habits together in your conversations.
Yeah, yeah. Although I did hear someone say that you shouldn't do a trial run. You know, if you get married or commit to someone, then just move in together, and then whatever problems sort of come up, that's your work, and you're supposed to be doing that together. However, I don't know. I like the idea of having a trial run and having little, vacations and sleepovers, multi-day sleepovers, just to sort of test the waters and see how things go. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a good user suggestion.
I like that. I really like that idea. And I think you can go either way. Like people can be just so committed and so in it. It's just going to be a little bit more of an abrupt dynamic, a little bit faster. But I like the idea of like titrating and kind of testing the grounds a little bit first and getting comfortable. And then you sort of see where you're at.
Exactly. Yeah.
Amazing stuff. Well, thank you so much, Mike. This is a really fun episode. Thank you to all of our listeners. Please know that you can check us out on iTunes, Spotify, anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Mike's social media information is down below if you want to learn more about Mike. Thanks everybody for stopping by. I hope you follow us. I hope you listen to this podcast more and more, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Share it with friends and family who are on their journey of personal development and growth, and thank you for listening. Next week, we'll be back with more insights to guide you on your journey. And until then, keep practicing our tools and strategies to change your subconscious mind and apply some of the powerful learnings from this podcast so that you experience real life transformation.